Hi, everybody, and welcome to Discover Merrimack. I'm your host, Rosemary Rung, and I learned about this program going on in Merrimack that I discovered it. It's phenomenal, and it involves horses. And I'm really happy to welcome today Carly Kudalis, sorry, Carly, and also Alex Ranger, and we're going to learn more about it. So, Carly, first walk me back to how you got involved in horses in the first place.
Absolutely. So in 2013, I was 13 years old at the time. My mother signed me up for a horseback riding summer camp. It was only a week long, and we went and we rode the horses and we took care of them, and I immediately fell in love with horses. I feel like that's kind of how it is for a lot of horse people. And from there, I took a few months off, but then we signed up for another barn. It was an English riding barn. And from there, I rode there for about a year and a half, until I started looking for my first horse. So I was starting to feel confident enough that I'm like, I really want to have my first horse. It's everybody's dream. And we found a horse who was really young at another facility. And then we started switching and we rode to that facility. And for there, I stayed for a long time. I worked with several different trainers. And I rode with a lot of different horse personalities and different horse types. And I learned, I'm really interested in equine behavior. Mm-hmm. So from there, I actually decided to go to college for horses. So I just graduated last year with a degree in equine business management. And I also learned about behavior and how to run a facility. And that's when I started deciding that I want to have my own.
Okay, so did you start a facility?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so right here in Merrimack, we run Chatto Stables, LLC.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And is it on Joppa Road?
It is, Joppa Road, yep.
And what I found so exciting in your story, and I learned a lot about this from Alex's family too, is that you but you train and adopt wild Mustangs. Mm-hmm. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So it's funny, back when I was 13, this was when I first started riding, I used to watch a lot of movies about horses, I was young. And one of them that I remember to this day, it was a documentary about a handful of trainers, and they basically had 90 days to take a wild horse completely untouched and train it to be ridden and then compete. It's a competition called the Extreme Mustang Makeover. I, for one, am not much of a show person, but I knew I really wanted to get a Mustang one day. But also, 13 years old, I knew I wasn't ready to get one at the time. So that's when I really started focusing on learning about behavior so I can get better about training those horses. But after school, after I was close to graduating, I said, I need to get a Mustang. And I started looking into the Bureau of Land Management, which is a government-run division. And essentially what they do is they are trying to conserve the lands across the country. Obviously, we don't have a lot of wild horses around here, but out west, there's a bunch of horses that just roam the lands, and they ended up kind of disrupting the ecosystem because the populations are so large. So they have to work on rounding up the horses so that there aren't so many that are taking over all of the resources for the other animals, not even just the horses. And they pull the best of those horses to return to the range, and then they take the other ones and they put them up for public adoption.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. And how many of you adopted so far, brought into the program?
So far, we've had 6 total. We have 5 currently, one of which Alex owns, and then the other 4 my family and I own.
Because we have a picture of some of them.
Yes.
They're beautiful horses.
Yes, they are.
Are they about with a standard size of a horse that you typically
Yeah,
would...
so Mustangs are really cool because they range in height and build. So there's Mustangs that look like draft horses. There's Mustangs I've seen look like thoroughbreds, which are the race horses that a lot of people know of. So their height can vary from like pony size to these really massive horses. Like I have a Mustang that's like 16 hands, which is very large. It's more of a taller type horse.
So how do you go about getting the horses? Can you walk me through the process?
Yeah,
do you have to get approved first?
You do. So the way it works is you have to fill out an application. It's an easy application. You can do it online. And basically what the BLM is looking for is that you have 6-foot tall fencing. Mm-hmm. So if you're adopting a horse that's 2 years or older, you have to have 6-foot fencing because they don't want the horses jumping out. It doesn't happen, but it's an extra precaution so that they don't have wild horses, going on the highways and stuff like that. But you have to have 6-foot fencing, and then for different areas of the country, it depends on the type of shelter that you need. So for New England, you need to have a 3-sided shelter with a roof. We call those a lean-to. But for places like Texas, you only need a tree for shade. So it does vary. That's why it's important to fill out the application and make sure that you're approved. But from there, if you are, there's a lot of ways that you can go about getting the horses. So one of those ways is through the internet adoption. It's very similar to eBay. And what they do is they pull certain horses and they put them online, and they have all the information for that horse, and you can go and you can bid, and you can get in a bidding war with some people, and sometimes you don't, and you just win the horse. It's really cool because they're not the most expensive horses. They're only $125, unless you get in a bidding war with other people. But there's, for the most part, that doesn't always happen. You know, you can get these horses really cheap, and they're really, really cool horses. There's other ways to do it that's not just online. There's going to be an event in Swansea in April, so you can just go to this event, fill out an application, get approved, and they will have horses that you can just go, pick up, and take home that day.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, there's lots of different ways. It is a little harder being in New England because a lot of the horses are out west. So they have like these permanent corrals out there that people can just drive up like any day of the week and go get horses. But for here, it's a little harder. We have to wait for either the internet adoption or for that in-person event.
So let's say you get a horse. How do you bring it to Merrimack? Do you have to go get it, or is there delivery services?
Yeah, so it depends. So like the Swansea event that's coming up, there's also the internet adoption next week where if you win a horse there, you can actually have it be brought to Swansea to pick it up there, which is really helpful. If not, you do have to have a hauler come out and get it. The only thing is you have to have a certain trailer. So a lot of people know the horse trailers. It's like the side to side. The horses stand right next to each other with the bar. If you're getting a Mustang, you can't have that. It has to be like an open concept trailer. So what they do is you go to these events, you back your trailer into this chute, and then they send the horses just straight through into the trailer.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot. Yes.
So you said you've gotten 6 so far? Mm-hmm. And now how many other trainers like you are there in New Hampshire?
There's not a lot. I know of at least, I think I just know 1, maybe 2, but I'm sure there's others out there. Yeah, I know 2 at least, but it's just not something that's very common in this area. And I think part of that is people just don't know. Because like once I talk to people and say, hey, this is something that you can do, everybody gets all excited and they definitely want to do it. It's just we don't get a lot of, again, we don't see wild horses everywhere, so people just don't know that it's a problem that we have to deal with. You know, there's a lot of horses still in holding that need homes.
Okay, so, but not everybody could get a horse because you have to train it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you describe the behavior between a Mustang that you're bringing in and one that is
Like a
trained?
domestic horse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like to see it as they are very similar. The only difference is essentially the first couple days or weeks when you have a wild horse. So some of them, you get them and you unload them and they're in their pen and they like immediately, it was like they've never been wild. Like they acclimate perfectly to domestic life and that's how it is. Some of them it takes longer and they're not always, they're a little bit more weary of people. So it's mainly just the initial step in getting what we call gentling. So that's basically the term we use of going from wild and untouched to can be touched and groomed and basically anything that your regular domestic horse could do. So we call that gentling. So it's mainly that process that is different. But once they're acclimated to domestic life, they're like any other horse, at least in my experience. I mean, I've worked with a lot of horses and I've worked with some that are far more out there than the Mustangs have been. A lot of my Mustangs have been really great.
Oh, now Alex, you have a wild Mustang called Scarlet, right? And then I saw a picture where they had they took the tag off. What can you describe that for us? Like what that's like? When does that happen? And where does a tag start?
So it's an amazing feeling getting that tag off. And it can take up to like 20 minutes to like months. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the horse.
So so BLM puts it on when they capture the horse.
Yes.
And then it gets taken off after they've been Oh, okay. So like you said, it could take days, it could take months. Okay. So is it training that way too, Carly?
Yeah.
So what you go through the gentling and then what other training do you do before that horse is then given over to its owner?
So I mean, when I do it, well, so far I've taken in horses that I said I'm gonna rehome, and that hasn't happened. I've kept each horse that I said I was going to, but I am picking up a horse for somebody, you know, in the spring, and a lot of it's just you get it in and you get them used to, you know, human interaction and know that people aren't scary. Then they lead with a halter and you can walk them around and brush them. And that's, for the most part, all that people really need. A lot of the problem with the Mustangs is they fear that initial step. They're worried that, oh, they're not going to be able to handle it or all that stuff, but they are the exact same as domestic horses. It's just that initial step of getting them comfortable with people, which if you do it, you know, quietly and calmly, they're fine. They acclimate really quick.
Do they have to have any dietary changes when you get them?
I mean, I like to feed horses 24/7. I think that's just an element of how horses are. They're forage animals. They like to eat. It helps with their digestion. So for the most part, if you feed that way, that's kind of what they're already used to, especially when they are in holding from the Bureau of Land Management who has them. They feed them 24/7, so there aren't a whole lot of changes that need to be made.
Okay.
I mean, but sometimes, you know, you get a skinny horse in that needs a little bit more extra food, or sometimes it's the opposite. People have gotten overweight horses that they needed to diet. It just depends on the horse.
So when you get the horses, so you do the training, and then you'll either rehome them to somebody else. But do people get the horse and then say, "Oh, Carly, could you do the training for me?" And then they come and get the horse later?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, training depends on like what people want. You know, some people I know, and I'm kind of one of them, is they never want to ride the horse. You know, they just like being around it and making sure it can be safe around other people and that the vet can take care of it and not have the horse, you know, be a danger to them. And some people like it to be all the way to be ridden, and it just totally varies. And some people get stuck at certain points, you know, I mean, it happens to all of us, even trainers we deal with. We get to a point with our horses when we're like, I don't know where to go further, and that's when you ask for help, and that's happened, you know, but for the most part, people are pretty good, and they like to train their horses, and they do a good job. And I find with the Mustangs, they're really good about liking certain people. That's, I guess, one of the elements that makes them a little different is they do like, especially the people that teach them trust in the beginning, they really, really like to stick with those people. And sometimes I find when they just work with that person, the training actually goes along much better.
Oh, okay. Now, the owners of the horse, or the people that you may be training for, did they participate? Like, did you participate in the training at all, Alex?
Yes.
She did.
Oh, okay.
She did most of it, actually.
Yeah.
Now, how much time do you spend with Scarlett?
Since I have school and work, I tend to spend as much time as possible with her. So I could be over there for just a quick like training session for like 30 minutes, or I could be there for like 3 hours.
Okay. Do other people ride Scarlett? Do you ride Scarlett?
Oh no,
Not yet. She's young.
she's a year and a half.
Oh, okay. What age do horses typically are? before
It
they're-
varies, but the rule of thumb is around 3 years old.
Oh,
You
okay.
can start sitting on them at like 2.5, but their maturity of just different parts of their body is different for each year, so the spine actually doesn't fully fuse until they're about 5.
Oh, okay.
And that's where obviously you sit on them. So people do like to wait as long as they can before they start riding them.
So Scarlett's only a year and a half. And when did you get her?
We got her around 7 months.
Around 7 months. So was she then a wild foal? She was still a foal,
Yeah.
right? Wow. So I wonder how they get the horse. How do they catch them? Do they?
They have to round them up. They've used helicopters before to do it, and sometimes they just have like cowboys, like ranchers, go out and just round them up like they would with cattle. And then they send them into like these panels, which then they send them into a different trailer. It's a pretty big process to get all of this figured out.
Well, you know, I'm binging Yellowstone, so
Sure.
that's kind of like
Sure, yeah, you can see you got it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So, what's your ultimate goal for Scarlett? And we have a picture of you with so we could see what
Yes.
she looks like. She's a beautiful horse. Yeah, there you are.
So I kind of want to do maybe jumping if she gets above 14 too.
Which is a height.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
14
14
hands.
hands.
Yeah.
14 hands.
And I think I told you I just read the book about Snowman, the $80 horse.
Yep.
It was an
Yep.
excellent book. Yeah.
And if she isn't that tall, I mean, it's fine. I can just like do trails with her and just do like just free jumping and just let her go over some stuff.
Okay.
But I do want to be like showing her in hand at like certain shows that do it.
for jumping?
No, so the in hand, you basically just run next to the horse and just show them off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
So
pretty
this
much
horse,
judged on conformation and color and stuff like that. Yeah.
okay, so it's not like dressage where
That's different.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't realize there's so much to the horse life and
Yeah.
all the different. My daughter loved horses from the time she could speak. She always, wanted horses, and but we didn't have the horse bug, so it was really hard raising a child that had this passion that you couldn't share.
Right.
But she ended up getting into dressage, and she liked that, and she adopted a horse, but it wasn't a Mustang. But I would think people would like to, like, you must love to train Mustangs.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. If I could do day one with the Mustang, the gentling process, every single day of my life, I would do it. That's my favorite part. I absolutely love watching them go from, I don't like you, to, ooh, you're really cool, I like you a lot. And you see it. I mean, my most recent horse that I got, Ollie, I have a video I just watched the other day, and it only took 30 minutes, which isn't too long. But in the beginning of the video, she was like the exact opposite of the pen where I was. And then at the end, when I would turn around, and I'm glad I filmed it because I didn't see it, and I turned around and she was walking behind me. And then I'd look back and she'd be like, oh, I'm not looking at you. It was like the funniest thing ever. But then, afterwards, she's like following me everywhere. Now she follows these guys everywhere.
Really?
Like you walk in the pen and she's just like little puppy dog following.
And how long have you had her,
She's
Carly?
been here for 2 months.
2 months.
Yep, I got her in
Wow.
November. So, yeah.
And so you have 6 horses now, you said?
6 total. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So she has 1, and then we have 4 Mustangs, and we have an American Saddlebred who's not a Mustang, but he was my first horse, so he gets to stay.
Do they all get along? Because there's a pecking order with
There
horses,
is,
too.
yes, yep. Her dynamics, they do. It's not always easy. Some stuff, and some horses are great. You throw them into the field, and it's like nothing's changed. Some of them takes a little longer, but for the most part, they do work it out. So you kind of have to just trust the process and trust that it is going to work out, and it does.
This has been so fascinating, Carly. I am so appreciative that you came on
course.
today. And you too, Alex.
Thank you so much for letting us talk about this.
No, it's wonderful. And in Merrimack, too. I mean, who would think that we have this program for wild Mustangs in Merrimack? So if people want more information about this, do you have a Facebook page
I
or
do.
a website?
Either my personal page, Carly Kudalis, or Chato Stables LLC.
Oh, okay.
My personal page has a little bit more, and I'm happy if people reach out to me on there. That's totally good, because I've been talking Mustangs for weeks now, because we're all getting geared up for events that are coming up. But yeah, on there, I'd love to talk more about it.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you,
course.
Alex, for
Thank
coming.
you.
It's been great. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.